What is going on? Welcome to the first NHL Live Before Lock experience. And for the occasion, I got fully dressed. And we're going to review what the where the dress came from. So, for those of you that have not been following along, if you know what my avatar stood for, back when I was in poker, we kind of developed this kind of, I don't want to say this thing, where I was known as Sheets from Linkoping. The Linkoping Hockey Lions was the mascot, and it just became my avatar forever. And back in the day, I actually bought 3 actual home jerseys of the Linkoping Lions. I'm wearing the blue one. I have a white one also. And I said that I was only going to wear them if I ever made the final table of the World Series of Poker main event or something like that. Well, that never happened. And it's not exactly something you can wear all the time. So I wore it once when I went to a Ranger game. And this is going to be the next time I'm wearing it, is for the first ever NHL Live Before Lock show. So this is if you're familiar with my avatar, this is from whence it came. We'll get one more look. And I actually had to have someone from Sweden place the order for me because I didn't speak any Swedish in the site for Linkoping Lions is pretty much all in Swedish. You could do Google Translate or whatever, but they're awesome. They're terrific. So we're gonna do this, and what we're gonna do. Sorry about the title, which Brandon put up, strategy and picks. It's really not going to be either of those things. It's more. It'll be a little strategy, but it's not going to be picks at all. We're not going to get into any of who the good plays are or anything like that. We're gonna presume that the projections and stuff we've done in the background before are projecting the players right, and all we're going to do is lineup construction and kind of show you different ways to do that. And I think for hockey, it's really important because what's been kind of going around the campfire a little bit is people saying, well, I don't want to go use SaberSim. Everybody's using these sims. You're just putting these tools in. They're just running lineups and just going with it. They're not putting any thought into it. It's not like that at all. It's not so easy to just say, okay, I'm going to buy SaberSim, throw lineups in and print. It's not that's not the way it goes. Okay. There's a lot of art to this, and there's a lot of decisions you can make that are going to get you completely different builds and completely different ideas. So it's not to say, well, I'm just going to throw lineups together using SaberSim or any sim product, for example, is really understating the nuances of lineup construction. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through that. And hockey is a perfect sport to illustrate how different you can be, even when everybody's using the same, even if everybody uses the same projections, and even if you're using the same tools, because how you use them is really, really important. So what we're going to do is we're going to share my screen here, and we're going to do a couple of things, right? First of all, I am going to show you the sheets for a second, just to give you an idea of what what you would expect to see. You see all these Florida guys up here at the top. You see some LA guys over here. It seems to be that would be kind of logical. And you see Richard Raquel at 4,200. So you probably get some Pittsburgh stuff in. So if you were just trying to hand build for whatever reason you want to do that, you could certainly start with Florida or LA or something like that. But that's just not what I do. I like to have SaberSim help with the construction. It takes things into account that I just wouldn't otherwise, and that I can't quantitatively. I'll show you, by the way, also what the stacks look like. I mean, again, just what they would look like if you rated them all kind of just by raw points here, it would be Colorado and Florida, but Colorado's really expensive, so Florida would probably be the best stack that way. And if you rated them in other ways, like by point per dollar, you'd get Pittsburgh as well, and then back to LA. And then when you rate them by modified stack, which is my own kind of metric here, you get again Colorado, again Florida, Pittsburgh, LA. So no matter how you slice it, Florida, Pittsburgh, LA, and Colorado, if you could afford it, looks to be where we're getting. And I will answer this question, Scott, as we get to it, because that's really, really important. Okay. So, first of all, it's important to know what's going on here as far as scheduling goes. You have a bunch of 7 o'clocks, an 8, a 9, and 2 10s, and a 10 and a 10:30. Of note is the Kings game is at 10:30, right? So just like the NBA, you're supposed to late swap every time. So you get your locks, you put your bets in at 6:55 or whatever, and then at as close to 8 o'clock as possible, you should run everything again, late swap again. Then at 8:50, you should run everything again, late swap again. At 9:50, you should run everything again, late swap again. And then actually again at 10:20, you should run everything again and late swap again. That is optimal play. Is that unrealistic? I don't know. It depends on your life. It depends on your levels of commitment and all that. I'm just telling you what's optimal, and that's what you're supposed to do. And this will be for another lecture. But for those of you who say, well, if I'm doing kind of okay, should I still late swap? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. You should late swap every single time you have the opportunity. You should change your lineups every single time you have the opportunity. And I'm not going to get into all of this right now, but the fact is that whenever you have information that you didn't have before, you always need to switch. Okay, you can't be sure what you're switching to, but when you're making lineups based on no information, it should look one way. And if you base your lineups on processed information, it should look another way. So I'm not going to debate this with you guys right now, but you'll just have to trust me. So now to answer your question, OG, do I update projections throughout the slate, or do you save some projections for late swap? I personally do not update my own custom projections after lock, only because I can't, only because I'm not quick enough, good enough, around enough to do it. Okay. But you should. Let's put it this way. If you did have the ability to do that, you should. I usually just at this point, if I get to late swap, if I can run all new projections, I will. But worst case, I'll use the SaberSim projections. That's usually, I guess, good enough. And when Remo is saying, what are you looking to late swap towards? I have no idea. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how the projections will have changed. I don't know what will have happened in the 7 o'clock games. I won't know how my lineups were affected by the 7 o'clock games until the 7 o'clock games are going. So for me to suggest, what am I looking to late swap to? I really have no idea. And one day I will do kind of like a full night thing where I do late swaps or whatever, and I come back online and show you how to do that and all this stuff. But you could look at all kinds of videos on how to late swap. It's really not that difficult. Okay. So that's the way it plays out. Now, if you want to get cute and kind of look at the way the slates kind of probably shake out, like you have a couple of like key games and like all these different time slots, right? So you have like Devils with a 3.8 total at 7 o'clock. Then you have along with Florida. So the early part of the slate, you can consider the Florida Devils slate, right? And then you get like the Colorado slate at 9 o'clock. And then you get the Kings slate at 10:30. So the other thing, by the way, that you could do if you want, you could give bumps to the later games just because of the flexibility it offers. But one thing you can't do, and someone told me this, I didn't know you couldn't do this. In the NBA on SaberSim, you can manually change the totals of the games. And I know that the DFS PhD does this when he like has his opinions on, on pace and how it impacts things. You could change the overall totals on the NBA and have it filter down to all your projections. It doesn't work in hockey for whatever reason. So it's not the same. You can't get away with that. If you wanted to make changes to like late game projections, you have to go into each game and kind of do it. And yes, SaberSim does not have live updated sims and live updated ownership for hockey like they do for NBA. So this late swap process is not as useful. It's still useful, but it's not as useful as the NBA. Okay. Okay. So what we're doing right now is just uploading my custom projections to SaberSim. But again, for the purpose of this discussion, it doesn't matter. Whatever projections that you use, you're going to be hopefully learning about what I'm doing and applying that to your projections. Okay. And my projections, ownership, all this is put in here. Now, what I'm playing 2 tournaments. I'm playing the Tuesday 20, which is the MMA, and I'm playing 40 lineups in that. And I'm playing this $1 million barn bash and one lineup in that. And I've already put the contest sim settings as far as what they pay out. We're going to get to the field lineups in a second, but the contest size and all that stuff has already been put in for both of these. So I did that in advance, so I don't want to waste time doing that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build lineups. How many lineups you're going to build? You just build the maximum up to, I guess, the amount of entries that are going to be in the tournament. So like in this one, 11,764. So I'm going to build 5,000. So we're going to put 40 lineups in over here, but we're going to build 5,000 lineups. And again, what this is doing is it is giving you this field of 5,000 lineups to choose from. Okay. And when you say choose from, what do you mean? Don't you take the top 40 ones? Top 40? Yeah, sure. The top 40. The top 40 ranked how? Oh, you think so, DFS? Maybe. So just you have 5,000 lineups. Yeah, we're going to take the top 40, but rated how? Ranked how? Is it going to be just by the top projected lineup? Is it going to be by the top sim lineup? Is it going to be by the top whatever? And that is why you get 5,000 lineups to choose from. Now, the other thing is the reason why we're building the most lineups is to answer Scott's question about what field lineups we're going to use to sim our lineups against. Okay. So what we've done now is build 5,000 lineups, and I don't like to look at what I would have. Okay. But I will for your guys' sake. So I did nothing. I'd be getting 100% Pittsburgh. Okay. All right. So what we've done, by the way, let's see what we've done. We've used the large slate default. Okay. And if you care, you can go into here and find out what large slate default means. And you get into the formula and stuff. And you can just to estimate here, they give you a little bit of credit for having a good projection. And then they give you the 95th percentile kind of like lineups outcome sort of. And then they ding you for having ownership so it's minus 0.5 times projected ownership. So that is how these lineups are being built when you rank them in this way. So it's built 5,000 lineups using this kind of default project. Now I use the 20 max because I thought it was kind of a good combination of what I was doing here. You could instead build your 5,000 lineups based on 150 max settings, but I don't mess around with this initial settings literally at all. Some people do, some people don't. Don't do min. I rely on their default min salary, max salary, or whatever it is. Okay. So one thing you could do, like if you wanted, is remember we're talking about SaberSim. You use SaberSim 100 different ways. You could just say, you know what? These are 40 good lineups. Let's blast. Let's put them in there. And you'd be getting the top 40 lineups rated by SaberScore by those metrics I just put in there. Okay. And that's certainly something you can do. what I like to do to answer your question now, OG Gifted, is I like to check and see the team stacks. The stack exposure. Like what types of stacks we're getting here. Because sometimes you'll get builds where you get a whole bunch of these non-traditional stacks, like 2-2-2s, 2-2-2-2s, whatever. And then you get to make a decision. Remember, just because everybody's using SaberSim doesn't mean everybody making the same decisions. So this is decision one, is what stacks you will allow. Will you allow them all types? Or will you make rules or X them out? I personally like to X things out. I only want to play 6s, 5 2s, and 4 3s. Okay. So to answer your question, OG Gifted, those are typically the most likely stacks to win. Okay. 5 2s, 4 3s, and full team stacks with 6s. Okay. So the first thing I will do is I will X out these others. So again, now lineups are disappearing, right? So it's a little different. So the next thing you could do, and this is before we even get into the Sims here, is if not saying you don't like it, but if you want to get a little more diverse, you will mess around with this min uniques thing, okay? And I'm going to share something that Jordan from SaberSim shared, and I have not tested this. I have not, whatever. I have a feeling it's just instinct. I don't know, but what he suggests, if you want to get as diverse as possible without like getting into the bottom of the barrel of the lineups, is to keep on going min uniques more and more and more until SaberSim yells at you, meaning until it doesn't let you even play the amount of lineups that you want to play. So you go all the way to say min unique even 6, min unique 7. And in hockey, it'll let you do a lot because you got a lot of guys to choose. Okay, so wait, it already yelled at you. So it yelled at me when it went to min uniques 8. So what he recommends is to go 2 before that. So if min uniques 8 got them to yell at you, then you would go to min unique 6. Would be a good combination of getting different, getting more diverse without going to the bottom of the barrel. And listen, this is coming from Jordan from SaberSim. I have not tested this. This is for something smarter than people like me. But what you do see is that, if you do this, you're going to get, just a more, you're going to get less of the top team. Okay, that's for sure. And this is a decision. This is a decision which, quite honestly, I don't know the answer to. So each slate, especially in hockey, when you can screw around with all, these different variations, you could have 2 people or 100 people using the same projections, the same tools, the same everything. But because of this other decision and because of the stacks decision, you're getting a whole different type of lineup. Okay. So as far as what we're supposed to do tonight, I really have no idea. I think that instinctively, I don't want 82% Pittsburgh. So I'll go back to that min uniques 5 or whatever, where we spread it out a little bit, even min unique 6. Okay. And again, I have no mathematical justification for that. I'm just guessing that this is what I'm supposed to do. But hey, I know that what this is getting me. It's getting me some of the 5,000 lineups. I'm getting the right stacks. Well, let's just make sure that we don't. So here's another thing you have to double check and make sure that when you do this, you don't get these bad stacks anymore, right? So yeah, it was very interesting. So when you go min unique 6, now you also have to X out. You got to remember to X out all these other stacks that you don't want to get, right? So boom, 3 2s. This is a horror show, right? Now it's starting to yell at you a little bit more. So what this is telling you is that if you have to make all these changes along the way, maybe min unique 6 is not exactly what you want to do. Min unique 4, when you do that, then you get, more of what you are kind of looking for here. Okay. All right. So this could be a build that you could do, right? you're getting 4 threes, 5 twos, and 6s. You're getting min uniques 4. You're getting good projections. You're getting, you're still getting 75% Pittsburgh, which is a little bit annoying. Okay. But this is something you could do. So now let's run some sims and see what else you could do. And this is where you get really into the weeds. Okay. So before I hit run contest sims, I want to answer what's his name's question from all the way before. Like, what fields am I going to use? Like, I'm going to compare my 5,000 lineups against some field of 5,000 lineups to figure out what my best ROI lineups are compared to that field. So you have a choice of what to do here. So when you go back to contest sim settings, let's look at the Tuesday 20, for example, the default when you do this is Saber Sim ownership. Now, this thing depends on sport. In some sports, they have the field lineups already preset to certain GPPs, like flagship and high stakes or whatever. In hockey, the default is Saber Sim ownership, which means that the field that you're going to compare it to is completely based on the presumed Saber Sim ownership. So if you're going to do this, and if you're going to use this field as your comparison, you have to realize what you're doing here. Now, your ownership projections that you are putting in are no longer being considered. Okay, and I went over this with them 100 times. It is the truth, though. If you're going to use Saber Sim ownership as the field lineups to use your contest sims, they're going to use the Saber Sim ownership, and your ownerships are not going to be considered for this purpose. Your projections still will, but the ownerships will not. So if you are completely comfortable with the Saber Sim ownership, then I guess you can do that. Okay. And we are going to do that just to show you. Okay. So let's run a contest sim based on the Saber Sim ownerships. And what I'd love for them to add is kind of like a GUI here to show you like progress. See how much longer it has to do. Yes, you can, Ben. And what you could do, you can do that. You can make that rule before build or after build. What I like to do is do it after build. Like you saw what I did. Like I X'd out those stacks that we didn't like after build. And I think that's a better way to do it because at least you're picking from at least the good lineups in the first place. Let's give you an example before we look at this. Under stack exposure, right? Right now we are only getting 5 2s and 6s and 4 3s, but if you weren't, you could just X out like this. Like now, no lineups with 2s are going to be in there, for example. So I think it's better to build without bias first and then filter out after. Okay, so let's take a look and see what this looks like. So this is the Tuesday 20. We're going to sort by risk-adjusted ROI. And to answer your question, why risk-adjusted ROI instead of the others, I don't know. That seems to be best practice. So here's one thing that you will notice, okay? We're sorting them by risk-adjusted ROI. This is a really important thing, okay? Take a look at what team is the highest projected team, the highest exposed team when we've done this. It would be Dallas, at a full 62% Dallas. And as you recall, when we built it specifically just with Saber Score, we almost got no Dallas. So why is that? Well, here's the reality. There are some sports that the effect of running a contest sim have a much more dramatic effect on your lineup construction, your lineup builds, and your lineup portfolios than others. Hockey, huge delta like you're seeing here. Baseball, huge delta like you're seeing here. Basketball, very little. Like the difference between what your lineups builds would look like before you ran your contest sims and after is not that big of a deal. And football is like sort of in the middle. So why is that? Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but the reason for that is primarily, I think, to do with the fact of how highly correlated hockey lineups and baseball lineups are. League of Legends is the same thing. And so when that happens, if you try to fade like one guy, then you're also probably trying to fade like 5 guys. So that's, I guess, why you have that huge delta. So you have to really make this decision of whether you're going to go with that Saber Score builds or these contest sim builds where they give you completely different things. So you're seeing Dallas, Pittsburgh, LA do that. Now remember, what have we done? We've simmed it against the Saber Score, the Saber Score, whatchamacallit, the Saber Sim ownership field of lineups. Now you can still do the same thing. Like you could go min uniques 2, and you could do the exact same process as before. If you wanted to get a little bit more diverse. But now what I want to do, and I want to suggest that you can try to run the sims not against the Saber Sim ownership, but against the 5,000 lineups that you just created. Okay. And what that means is this is build 4. That's all 5,000 lineups. So what we want to do, instead of using the Saber Sim ownership field as your comparison, let's use the 5,000 we built. The idea being is that we have faith in our projections, and the 5,000 lineups over 5,000, that's why I built as many as possible, is going to represent the field of lineups that probably most people will play. And that's one of the reasons I put 20 max as far as my default, is because it's going to take into account that some people might not play as aggressively. So the 20 max thing will create a better kind of field of 5,000 lineups. So here we're going to save the settings, and we are going to rerun, and we're going to do it for both actually. Build 4, save settings, and we're going to rerun the contest sims. And now we're going to compare our lineups to basically our lineups. And that's a little bit of a mind F, right? I mean, you have this set of lineups, and then you're like, okay, how am I fading myself? Not exactly what you're doing, but sort of. If you know that this whole pool of lineups, it's going to be owned by X amount of people up here, you would want to get leverage against that. So I've been fiddling around with doing this type of sim in a lot of the sports, actually. Yeah. So let's see what it looks like now. So now let's click out of it, then we'll click back into it. So we're going to look at, again, Tuesday 20, sort of a risk-adjusted ROI. But now we've compared them to the field lineups, and now it's completely different again, right? So now, what happened to all that Dallas? Where'd all the Dallas go? I mean, now you're getting almost no Dallas. So the point is that depending on your settings and depending on your sim identification, and depending on all that stuff, to say, let's just run these things through the tool, it's just not that easy. And so they ask, well, okay, thanks, Sheets. Well, what are you going to do today? What are you going to do on a particular slate? A lot of it, unfortunately, comes down to feel as far as that goes. But what I would say is that if I'm very confident in my projections, okay, and my ownership and all that stuff, I'm more inclined to use the field, like my own lineups, like I'm just doing here, as my sim comparison. If I'm kind of fishy about that, like if I don't trust my own numbers as much, then I'll just go with the Saber Sim ownership. But if you sometimes I see DFS PhD, he'll go through this Saber Sim stuff and it's like, they have this wrong, they have this wrong, they have this wrong, and sometimes they do. So if they have that wrong as far as their ownership goes, and you try to run a sim using the Saber Sim ownership as the default, you're in a world of shit. Okay. Let's go back and see stack exposure. See, we have a bunch of 2, 2, 2, 2s. So let's X those out. X these out again. Okay. So once again, we could throw this stuff in. Now, I've learned to do this with MMA. And I'm starting to do it with all the sports too. And this is going to be really tough for you guys. I know it. I know it's really tough. I'm starting to really get this feel for after I build these lineups to really not even look and see what I have. And try to take your biases out of this. Like if you get 70% Dallas, I know this is going to be tough, okay? But don't think, I don't want to do that, okay? I get it. I understand. Like, I don't want to play Randy Brown. I don't want to play 50% Randy Brown. I don't want to do it. I know. I understand. But these tools are really powerful, and this math is really strong, and I wouldn't get too involved in second guessing yourself. And the other thing, which is kind of tricky to do, is that especially with hockey, I've just shown you like 4 different ways that you can rank these things. I know what some of you are going to do, like instinctively. Well, you know what I'm going to do? I like Florida going into this. So you know what? I'm going to find the technique that gets me the most Florida. Okay. I mean, that's, I guess, better than the alternative, I suppose, of just forcing Florida in. But at least, I guess, if you're going to do that, at least rely on one of these constructs to make this work. Okay. And the last thing I want to impress upon you, by the way, is that just double check your freaking goalies. It's something you just forget. Like right now, you have the Devils. I still don't have a confirmed goalie for the Devils. It's 6:30. Right, so just make sure at the very least that you do that. And again, if you need to know kind of how to do this, see which one do I want to do. Let's we'll stick with this one. I'm going to change everything before lock anyway. So you want to give it a little more min uniques here for today. Maybe that's fine. It doesn't make too much of a difference. So let's save these in here. And I like to save just as unique rank. There's a lot of other things you do. Unique random seems a little bit too much for me. So I'll save these. Oh, actually, I'm only playing 37. I'm not playing. Oh, I am playing 40. Oh, here's another thing you do. Let's make sure that you have the right contest file in. That's another thing. So hold on. Let's hold on a minute. Let's upload my entries. Hold on a minute. Let's make sure we have all these in here. Okay. So now we'll go back to our lineups wherever we built for. And we'll save these into here. Boom. And we'll build the barn bash as well. Risk adjusted ROI. You don't need to do min uniques any because it's one lineup. And we'll just kind of go with this. Looks to make sense to me. Save. And then download and upload. And you have to do this pretty much every time there's that late swap window. Okay. Now I hate to be rude, Steven. Who's my top goalie? If you want me to be sarcastic, I'll put in. So right now, my top goalie is Marc-Andre Fleury. So, but that's only because that's the way I've run it. I don't really have top plays or anything like that. I just kind of go with what the numbers kind of show me. And and so that's basically the process. And you got to do it pretty much at every stage. Okay. Late swap's a little different. You have to do a few different things. I won't be around to be able to show you that. I don't believe. If I am, I'll record it at least. It's a little different. You have to, if you want to update new projections, you could do that. And then it's a question of how many lineups you want, how many sims or how many late swaps you want to do per lineup or something like that. That's another thing. But so late swapping is another thing in and of itself. But here's one thing that I'll give you more advice is to do what I'm doing right now. Like, you've got to get practice, not just like knowing the players. It seems stupid, but practice like actually clicking this stuff and downloading it and uploading it and being able to do it fast. Okay? Because sometimes you'll get news that comes out or whatever it is, and you have 10 minutes, and you have to have the faith in your system, in your tools and your clicking to be able to get everything done within a short period of time. So you've got to, even if it means like playing like the 1 cent or something like that. And that's one of the reasons I do like all these other sports also, is they're all the same to me. You know what I mean? They're different when they're different types of sports and different types of approaches, but it's still the same type of thing of messing around with SaberSim and doing, and messing around with CSVs. I'm not that technologically savvy, but I know my own technology and I know what I need to do to get things going. So again, just to summarize, you need good projections. Sure. I like the TrueDFS one because I use pretty much all the industry. You need good ownership projections. You do need a good tool. And yeah, there are other good sim products out there. I'm sure I personally have just not used anyone. Well, there's one other I used. I use SaberSim like for 99% of my sim stuff. I started messing around with this other one, this Ace something or other one. Still like kind of in, I wouldn't say beta, but I've been messing around with that. But I'm not saying the other ones are bad. I just never used them before. And familiarity with the interface and familiarity with how you have to click and whatever it matters. Okay. And yes, this is not perfect. Sims are not perfect. In 2 years, you're going to look back at this and you know what you're going to say? Oh my God, I can't believe we were doing that 2 years ago. This is terrible. So you could say, well, it's terrible now, but it's better than it was. And this is more of an art than a science. And you could, mess around with all these different things. And I don't know the answers, and I'm learning just like everybody else. I am probably not going to do another projection update before lock. But if I do, you'll see it push through. I don't think I would unless, I did it like 15 minutes ago, unless there's a big injury or somebody that's out and the lines are completely different. I don't know if I would change. I may as well say it was actually Ace Mind. That's the other one I've been kind of fiddling around with. But they're like way behind. Let's put it that way. They're like way behind. But hey, you know what? Everybody that pushes the industry to get better is always good. Okay, that will do it. Hope everybody enjoyed. Hope everybody learned something. And go Linko Ping.